What's going on, y'all? So someone wanted me to compare the Waves RS124 to the United Plugins Royal Compressor, and that's what we have here. I've got a female vocal, I've got a vocal from Coretta King, and first we're going to look at the differences in these two compressors, and then we'll hear how they sound. So starting with the differences, just looking up these two, they're both obviously modeled off after the famous Vari-mu compressor from Abbey Roads. Looking at the metering here, the Waves RS124 goes down to 30 dB of compression, while we go down to 10 dB compression on the Royal compressor. The Royal compressor has a trim for your input. You have an auto hold on the RS124, whereas on the Royal compressor, you have different spots on the release for hold. You have an auto gain, and if you click this, it'll go into linear phase mode. And if you click the question mark here, it takes you right to the manual, which I'm a fan of. I like plugins that I can quickly get to the manual for. Model A, B, C, these are all three different attack and release times, A being the fastest, C being the slowest. So you have kind of three different variations here with the Royal compressor. With the Waves, you have studio version, which is a faster attack and release time, and you have cutter version, which is a slower attack and release time. On the RS124, you also have this super fuse button, which to me is like a all buttons in 1176 style, just hyper aggressive compression there. And with the Wave, you can set the meter to input, output, or gain reduction. With the Royal compressor, you can it just shows you gain reduction. You have a saturation from 0 to 100. So on the Royal compressor, you can control how much saturation you have. Both plugins have wet and dry. You have to click this expand to get down to the wet and dry on the Waves. And newly added to the RS124 is the high frequency roll off. So with it off, you're getting a more airy sound, and turning it on, you're going to roll off that top end some. And lastly, on the Royal compressor, if you right click, you have an option to change the oversampling as well as resize the GUI, and kind of weird to me, but you have the option to save a screenshot here. All right, let's take a listen to how these sound. So we'll start with the Royal compressor. I don't have any processing on these vocals, no EQ or anything, just the compressor, and I've got a little bit of reverb. But we'll start with the Royal compressor, then we'll listen to the RS124, and then I'll go through some different settings on each compressor. So this is the Royal compressor.
He got feet down below his knee, yeah. Hold you in his armchair, you can't feel his disease. Come together, yeah, right now, over me.
And here is the RS124.
He got feet down below his knee, yeah. Hold you in his armchair, you can't feel his disease. Come together, yeah, right now, over me.
So out of those two examples, I think the RS124 from Waves sounds a lot smoother. I can hear the compression with the Royal compressor, and the breaths are coming out a lot with the Royal compressor. But let's go back to the Royal compressor and let's go through some of these settings. So we've got A, B, C, A being the fastest, attack and release time, C being the slowest, B being medium. So we'll start with A and take a listen.
He got feet down below his knee, yeah. Hold you in his armchair, you can't feel his disease.
And this is B.
He got feet down below his knee, yeah. Hold you in his armchair, you can't feel his disease.
And we've already heard C, but let's take a look at the saturation now. So I have it at 60. This is with the saturation at 0.
He got feet down below
And this is with the saturation at 100.
He got feet down below his knee, yeah. Hold you in his armchair, you can't feel his disease.
All right, let's switch over to the Waves RS124. We've been listening to Studio. Let's switch it to Cutter, which is a slower attack and release time.
He got feet down below his knee, yeah. Hold you in his armchair, you can't feel his disease.
And we'll go back to Studio and we'll hit expand here and let's listen to this. We've been listening to the high frequency roll off, and now let's turn it on, which is going to roll off some of the high frequencies.
He got feet down below his knee, yeah. Hold you in his armchair, you can't feel his disease.
So between these two, I prefer the Waves RS124. It just has a smoother character to it that I enjoy more on vocals. Now, one thing I do want to point out here is that the Royal Compressor has a really fast release time. Let's turn that to fast. I'll just show you compared to fast on the RS124 versus fast on the Royal Compressor. Let's put this back to A, which has the fastest. Actually, let's keep it on the slowest. Okay, so we're paying attention to the release here. This is the RS124.
Come together, oh yeah, right now, over me.
And this is the Royal Compressor.
Come together, oh yeah, right now, over me.
So really fast release there, and that's even at the slowest of the models, being C. So yeah, but between these two, I prefer the Waves RS124, although you do have some interesting features on the Royal Compressor, like the ability to adjust the saturation, as well as linear phase option and oversampling. So let me know what you think in the comments. Which one of these did you prefer on this vocal, the Waves RS124 or the United Plugins Royal Compressor? If you want to pick up or learn more about either one of these compressors, I have links in the description. Any questions, comments, let me know, and I'll catch y'all next time. I want to invite you to check out my podcast, the Faders Up Podcast, where we discuss pro audio and beyond. We discuss everything from recording to gear to the music business. So if you're an audio engineer, songwriter, recording artist, music producer, this podcast is for you. We recently started season 2, and we're going to have a lot of listener questions on this season, as well as some really cool guests that's lined up and giveaways as well. So if you've already subscribed and followed the podcast, thank you. If you haven't, it's available on all platforms, and I encourage you to check it out. Also, rate it and review it and let us know what you think.